La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Hello, everybody. Welcome to La Antenna podcast. Fabrizio here and
Matt. Hey, great to meet everybody.
Well, thank you for joining to our podcast. And we're here to talk about not only about Serie A, not only about our amazing Genoa CFC, but about anything regarding to the last match day, I guess, and the next one upcoming. So I guess being that this is like our pilot, our first episode, Matt, I guess let's open it and kind of have it free form type of thing. So I was thinking, why don't we start out with just talking about ourselves? Who are we and what we are doing? Why are we here? So what if I open it up with you? Just putting it up there.
That sounds great. My story is kind of a funny one. I feel like every time I tell it, there's like a little bit more that I add on to it. But my whole thing began in the pickup soccer streets of New York City. I play with a group of guys. We all wear red or white every time we play. I think the thing being like an international fan, it's kind of interesting picking a team, especially if you grow up. I grew up in Kansas City. You know, you're from a place maybe that isn't always in the limelight.
But wait a minute. I thought you were from New York. So what's up with New York versus Kansas City?
Yeah. Well, the Kansas City thing, that's my – I rep definitely the Royals and the Chiefs. I'm a little selective with my New York teams. The Knicks and Rangers are kind of my New York thing. But I've been in the city for about 10 years. So I feel like I can kind of say I'm a New Yorker now. But it's an interesting thing picking a club. For me, the options were more limited because it had to be red or white. You know, we're always wearing a different shirt. And I think it all started, you fall in love with the colors. You know, you look at like that kind of deep red with that navy blue. You love kind of like the half and half shirt combination. But it wasn't kind of a whole lot more than that until kind of I got on the pitch and playing with some of my friends, and they were all giving me a hard time because they're all rooting for Inter or for Juve or from some of these other, for some reason, they're all kind of rooting for Italian teams. And after a little bit, you kind of puff up your chest and say, you know what? Yeah, I am a Genoa fan. Like, screw you guys. So it kind of started that way in angst, I guess, at some of those guys and usually being on the butt end of the joke, but sometimes pulling off a win or something.
So let me get this straight. So you're like kind of like that sort of like a rebel type of guy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Right, which is good.
I mean, it's a weird thing, I feel like, because you could pick like the Juve, you could pick the Inter, but also
that's too easy.
Yeah, every year you have to win everything, otherwise it just sucks.
Right.
I don't know. I'm a little bit. I do follow Arsenal too, so I can't completely say I'm a rebel. But I guess they haven't won a whole lot in the last couple of years. But that's kind of how it started. And then I ended up meeting Daniele, who runs the Genoa fan group in New York, and that really kind of helped grow some connections, learn more about the club. I'm on a WhatsApp group that is almost exclusively Italian, and everybody's like, I think Matt is lost somewhere. I'm like, I'm doing Google Translate. I'm following along.
So wait, so you started with the red and blue jersey,
yeah,
or rooting for Genoa, etc., before you had met the Genoa Club New York.
That's right. Yeah.
So your Genoa Club New York actually emphasized what you were rooting for already on your own.
Totally.
Against all the others of your typical top 5, 4, 3 teams of Serie A. That's amazing. That's really amazing. Good for you.
It was a good. It's always fun. I think everyone is still sort of bemused by why of all the clubs they picked. Like, why did you pick Genoa? Like, you could have gone anywhere. But it's when you get to share it with other people, I think it adds so much. You can talk about what's going on. We can share the same kind of grief, and I think it's a big part of staying connected and paying attention to everything. So
you're saying grief. I guess that's one of the mottos for us Genoani. You know, it's true. Like, grief is like one of those things where Yeah, I heard about it from fans from Inter. I heard about it from all the other ones like Juve or whatnot. But is it really the same? I mean, mind you, obviously some could say, well, we have won this in the last X number of years versus what have you done really lately. But it's not only about, I think, that's me being genuine, but I'll tell my story shortly. But it's not only about what you win, but it's also the passion, what you root for, what the emotions, and we will talk about also the Genoa Cagliari match as well. But that's something that I don't know. It's something that it's hard to describe, and it's something that it's enrooted in. Like I've heard like some of other fans from around the world that are Genoa fans now, the Genovese that are now living abroad, and they're like, all of us are without some level of voice because we have screamed so hard for Badel's goal against Cagliari that it's like, oh my God, that passion is hard to describe. Now, everyone will have and describe their own passion for their own team, but that's amazing what you just said, like about that type of passion, that type of grief that you have, and it's hard to describe. I don't know. What would you say? Is that like as strong as winning a Scudetto versus that even that 1-0 against Cagliari? I don't know. What are your thoughts around that?
I mean, it's such an interesting thing because this is something I feel like most international, well, at least I'm basing on my American friends, like rooting on the other side of the table isn't as much of a common thing, but definitely like those matches are the ones that you remember, like we'll be thinking about this even a couple of weeks after, even if we don't stay up in Serie A, because it just gives you that hope. And every single game at this point in the season, and usually for most of the season, you got to get something out of it. And that just because getting a point is so essential to whatever we're trying to do, in most cases, just staying up, that it does add that emphasis. So I don't know. It's a different experience, obviously, because you're not always expecting to win. You kind of have a little bit more realistic outcomes of what we're going to get out of the game. But it doesn't, to your point, it doesn't change the passion at all. You're still kind of rooting for the best for your club.
For sure. Well, I guess it's my turn to say a little bit who I am. So again, my name is Fabrizio Cardone. I have been since inception of president of Genoa Club Toronto. So my story is kind of complex in a way, but I'll try to make it. It can't be a long story short, but I'll try to make it as simple as possible. So born in Genova. Came to Canada because my dad had a job opportunity in Canada when I was 6 months old. So grew up in Canada, close to Toronto, and essentially didn't have much of Italianism other than my parents. My dad passed away when I was 2, and then my mom struggled and tried to stay in Canada as much as she could until her parents decided, well, not that they decided, but they convinced her to move back to Genova. So I was like in my early teens at that point. Never had much exposure. We're talking about the 70s here. Much exposure to Serie A because we have no social type of platforms or whatnot. No website because what was that, right? So then nothing. I just moved back to Italy because for me it was back, even though I didn't really live any of my adult or not even like life other than 6 months. And then so I went with my at school, and most of my peers at school, I would say like a 70% would have been like Genoani. So in Genoani. So I guess that's the first exposure to Genoa versus Sampdoria. Having said,
were they successful back in the time? Or was this a big, I guess the 80s more so?
So you're a little bit making me dig too much into my memories, but I would say that back then, I would say Genoa was already in Serie B,
okay,
but not doing too well.
Yeah.
Sampdoria, I don't know, because I didn't even care. Because if you lived in this, no, it's true, because if you lived in the city, and the city means Genova, you like naturally, especially back then, you would have been a Genoa fan. If you were more of a Sampdoria fan, you usually are someone that either moved into the city or were from suburbs of the city, hence the name of Sampdoria, which was a mixture of 10,000 mixtures, but that's a different topic. No, it plus on top of that, Genoa, English for Genova, founded by British men back in 1893, the oldest soccer team in Italy. So too much to really turn down compared to the other side. Sure, it was not on the top flight. Sure, blah, blah, blah. And I fell in love with Silvano Martina, which back then was like this amazing goalie, and a whole bunch. Priaski, who actually came here to Canada, which was a striker. And anyways, and then from there, I just started to love the Genoa side. Having said that, then after a while that I was already in Italy, started to root for this team. Never been to the stadium because I was too young and so on. My mom tells me, hey, by the way, before your dad passed, obviously she didn't use these words, but she was saying, your dad was a Genoa fan. I'm like, oh, really? Are you serious? So you're actually telling me I'm rooting for the team that my dad has been for when he grew up and so on. So already even right there was like, it was meant to be type of thing. So it was shivers, I guess. I don't know. What do you want to call that? And then, so then I rooted for Genoa. And then my first match I went to see, living in Genoa, was a lot easier, right? It was in, I'm going to say 1982. It was a derby. So my first match was a derby. So the one that we're going to be talking soon about that is going to happen next week or this weekend. Genoa Sampdoria. I think we were away, ended up 2-2. But trust me, so I went through a friend of my dad's. So long story short, I went to the Tribuna, which is like your softer, not so hot type of seats where people don't yell too much because it was safer, right? But I arrived to the stadium about half an hour, 20 minutes before the start of the game. And oh my God, the emotions, the shivers, the tears almost like of happiness because you felt, this was the first time of an exposure and experience in a stadium. Sure. The whole stadium was trembling. Everybody was chanting, and the whole state, it was sold out because it's a derby, so all Genova was there. And it was just tremendously amazing. And since then, how could you ever leave that, the true colors? As you said, looking at comparing even the colors, you look at this nice, beautiful, deep red, like blood red. And then you look at this deep navy blue. And what is the rest? Like a mix of colors, like whatever that is, right? So anyway, so that was my story up until then. Then, again, I'm trying to make it short, obviously, but then when I was about 25, I moved back to Canada. And then I started to basically decide, okay, wait a minute, what's my role here? So I want to promote Genova City soccer because back in the mid-90s, we're talking about soccer that was still at the early stages of something,
Especially here.
Exactly, right? So we were probably at the early stages or just a few years before MLS even started. Yeah. So I wanted to promote soccer. I wanted to promote Genova as a city, and definitely I wanted to promote my home team, my home colors, the red and blue. Mm-hmm. So since then, I decided to become a missionary and essentially created Genoa Club Toronto. And then since then I started to do like the first .coms. I bought this .com, and I was the first one to broadcast some sort of news in English for Genoa, which was basically unheard of at that point. And then social media came. It was a lot easier for everyone, and I was just became one of the others.
So Horacio, you were a pioneer though for a second though. I bet you must have been like the only or one of maybe two English publications talking about Genoa back in the day.
Probably, actually, most surely. I was just copying and pasting and translating some news that the official website was doing and trying to mimicking their website and logo and style and whatnot. But yeah, it was fun. It was fun.
That's awesome. I love it.
So this is our story. We'll definitely tell a lot more stuff and more things around it and so on, because I'm sure this is just a glimpse of who we are and so on. Mm-hmm. But I guess let's go back to last match. So we talked about not having much voice after the screaming of on the basically 88th, 89th minute.
Yeah.
So what's your take on that match?
It was, up until that time, it was going to be a pretty disappointing game. I mean, it looked like it was kind of like some of the performances we saw last season where there was, you could see the industry, players were they were fighting. It wasn't like, we were giving up on the match or anything like that, but it just didn't seem like we had the quality. And it was kind of one of those things, if you're monitoring the group chat at the time, just like, we look like we're going to be in Serie B. We were watching the match. One of our members, his little kid was there, and he was kind of already saying, yeah, it's for sure going to be 0-0 and all this other stuff, like why it's beyond his words. It looked like it was going to be a disappointing, another draw for Blessin and another kind of hard fought, but nothing really doing from performance.
That would have been what? His eighth, right? Eighth draw?
Yes. Yeah, it would have been 8. It's something remarkable. I mean, it's not the first or the second or the third time we've seen them put in like decent-ish performances and just not get something out of it. But
so, sorry, let me just interrupt you there before you move on, and I apologize for that. But why do you think we are at a stage where Genoa has this sort of potential, yet not talent, yet not being able to kind of thing?
I think we have a difficult lineup right now. I mean, part of it you saw in the game yesterday. I don't know if I'm generally a fan of our defensive players. I love Ostigard. He's the man. And Bonnie's pretty damn good too. But you kind of saw we have difficulty in certain parts of the pitch moving the ball forward. Vasquez is an example, I think. I think he's an excellent defensive player. He actually had a pretty good rating from the game, which I was somewhat surprised about. But anytime the ball went to him on the left side, especially when we were in the opponent's final third, there was no way he's putting that ball in for a cross. He was pretty much just laying it off to someone else. Badel, I mean, thank goodness for his goal, but not exactly well known for being an incisive passer. And I just think we've missed that quality, especially in the middle of the pitch and the creative side of the pitch. We try to get Amiri going. I think Giglione actually was very good in the game. But for most of the season, it just feels like that link is not quite there. And it's been different parts of the team too. I mean, I wonder what you think, but we didn't have anything going forward on the striking department until Ekuban kind of showed up. So it's kind of been a little bit of everything this season, but for me, it just feels like we don't have that connection between our defense and our attack quite the way we would want to.
No, I totally agree with you. Definitely, let's talk back a little bit just for a few seconds. So we first saw the start of the season with Zio Ballardini. So obviously cannot speak badly about him. Otherwise, we would have the whole Genoa fan all against us. And I'm not there to say that because I'm all for him as well, right? But obviously something happened through that the summer market that basically, what was it, like 80-90%? I'm exaggerating, obviously, but of on loan people, players that were not fully motivated. God knows what was the rationale, why they even accepted it. But we know from the past ownership that a lot of kind of like iffy kind of thing were always kind of happening, right? Yeah. So having said that, Ballardini for sure was one of those guys that was not too happy about it. He did not hide it. He's not a man to do that either. Right. But obviously, what else is he going to do other than just accept what was given to him? Then we see the new property come along. Just to give us some context, anyways, new property came along, and the first step that they did was basically exonerate him, so kick him out, and do this big mediatic type of approach by calling up this amazing player, for that matter, Shevchenko, to lead the team without having the sports director called in first. I'm not too much of an expert regards that. Is it much important? I did ask actually this connection to a journalist back in Italy, and they gave me a little bit more explanation to the difference between the actual manager versus the sports director. They are tied in. The first one, sports director, is the one that's supposed to like administrate everything, and then the manager is supposed to like just do what the sports director is supposed to do. Yeah. What did we see with Shevchenko? Really, nothing other than just a name. What was it, like 9 matches and 2 ties or something like that? Or
It was dire. It was rough.
mind you, to his side, the fact that there were 6 huge matches that were against like big teams that were very hard to go by with the squad that they had. And in the interim, the sports director came along and started to bring his own mentality, his own idealisms, and so on. And that just, I guess, huge discrepancy between the two. Eventually, we saw Shevchenko go, and needless to say, the approach to coming to Alexander Blessin. Alexander Blessin, an unknown figure, especially around Serie A.
Yeah.
But talked all about this. We heard a lot about this Gegenpressing, or I don't know, however you pronounce it.
That's how you say it.
Gegenpressing? Okay. And at a few first games, we actually, those 7 consecutive ties were something that some have dismissed. But ultimately, if you see also the roster of some teams that we played against, from Atalanta, sure, Atalanta right now is not doing that well, to the Roma and Inter and so on, we have had some nice show-ups and so on, and decreased the amount of goals we have taken. All this to say, essentially, that the team has changed drastically. The quality, I don't know what you think about with respects to what it was before the January marker or not. It's better, but it's not up there yet, I think.
Yeah.
But you're right. So we have drastically increased the level and the quality within the defense.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Like, if you look at the individuals with respects to the midfield, like, you see the names and you're like, okay, we have this Amir that everybody's like, oh my God, this guy's coming, and we had to sweat for his arrival until almost the last day of the market. Right? And then you have Badel, which well respected in Serie A because of the different experience that he had and whatnot.
He's a veteran.
But you're right. It's like that filtering that has happened last year after the second half. So you saw Badel together with Strootman. You saw that change. And I haven't seen it since. So is it Amiri not there yet? Has he had a good game against Cagliari? Well, I guess not. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been subbed. Do we see this great our captain, which is Stefano Sturaro, which you're seeing like a better player compared to last year? Absolutely. But there is this filtering part that you just said. In the forward, it's just that the attackers are like, what's missing? Are they missing the balls? Or not the balls as the balls, but maybe, right? The opportunities for them to kick into the net somehow for with whatever they have, or is it the quality up there is not there?
It's an interesting thing for sure. I mean, and thinking about all this stuff too. I mean, obviously, we did much more in the January window. You think about like Blessin and his background, and I'm so curious to think about where we're going to take this team, because I think also Spores and some of the other guys within the club, I think the RB Leipzig influence is, if I'm not mistaken, with a couple of folks in the director level or in the managerial positions at Genoa. And, we certainly don't have players that fit that specific style that team has. Obviously Leipzig, if you've ever seen some of the German stuff, I mean, they're incredibly well funded and they've got a lot of good players, but I don't know. I mean, there's some reason for optimism. Amiri, for me, I don't know what's going on. I really thought he was going to be really talented too. Maybe it's just been he's had kind of a difficult run. He got injured a couple of times and come on in the second half of games and many of his appearances. So, maybe he's not quite really found his footing, but it just, when you watch that first game of the season against Inter, even with, Ballardini being able to peep over the cracks as well as he had been over the last season and a half or so, and knowing all the outgoing players we had from all of the on loan signings that you mentioned, it looked like after that first game, we were for sure going. That was actually what we were saying when we were watching the games. Like, we're probably going down after one
Exactly.
game. So the fact that
That's
we're
right.
here with a fighting chance is, well, I'll take it.
No, for sure. Ultimately, the Cagliari game just showed the nth time the not the sorry the blessing type of approach that they're never giving up, and
Yep.
he wants the players to give their 100%, if not even more. And that's the amazing part. The level of confidence and the approach that he has with the players. You see him that he hugs them even when they're called off the pitch. He hugs them after the match, and he compliments them all the time. And that's a very, very, very important for a manager, for that matter.
Absolutely.
Now, the 3 points with Cagliari were outrageously important for those points of survival, that little minimal type of hope that everyone still has. Do we know we have a chance? Ultimately, I think most of Giovanni, obviously, you're going to have the heart is going to say one thing, and then the head is going to say something different. So if you look at the heart, I'm not going to even have to mention that because that's obvious. But the head says, you know what? We have nothing to lose. We're out there to do our best. What we want is the top and the best from the players, and then the pitch is just going to give the result. And you can see that from the fan base. I've been posting that also throughout my websites and my social media, that no matter what happens to the game, even like after the Lazio bad game or whatnot, you can still see the emotions, the passion that we haven't seen that for a long time.
That's true.
For a long time, which is amazing. So I've read some pages and so on, and they say it doesn't matter. Ultimately, we much rather go down this way with the new ownership rather than with the old ownership and still stay afloat with whatever biscotti, how we call it in Italian, and so on, right? So, which are those games that you kind of you agree on who wins or if you're tying and whatnot.
Yeah.
But
last week also with the Fiorentina match, but I won't say anything about that.
So
in big trouble.
We can say so many things, right? Derby. Let's talk a little bit about the derby. Yes. So derby Saturday, 6 p.m. local time, 12 noon Eastern Standard. What are your takes? What are your feelings? What are your emotions? What are you going to say about that match?
Well, obviously, we have to win. I'm so curious to see how Blessin lines up with this game. I kind of liked actually his formation in the match against Cagliari. I think Galdamesh looked actually pretty good, as much as I was criticizing the attacking kind of unit. There was a great kind of link up there. I don't even want to think about anything that Sampdoria is offering, but we've obviously not been on the right end of many of those matches. I think we really just kind of we have to keep our shape, which we've been doing a little bit better job at recently. And I think we just need to we have got to find a way to get someone on the forward line a little bit more involved. I think Ekuban has looked lively. He's not really had the luck the last couple of games, not probably the service he exactly needs. I kind of think we need that. I would rather see him probably than Destro. Start the match just in the form that Destro's been in, but there's something about I still think Destro is going to be that person that's going to come save it for us. So I don't know.
But let me just ask you one thing. So we've seen a lot with Blessing the fact of the 4-3-1-2, or no, sorry, actually I shouldn't say that. The 4-3-2-1. Yes. So with one striker and 2 or 3 slash at the back, right?
Yeah.
Behind him, actually. What do you think? Should that still be the approach for the derby? Should we see something different?
I mean, I kind of like the 4-2-3-1 that we took with Badal and Sturaro. I mean, the thing that was interesting, Sturaro's kind of a strange season. I think I agree with you. He has looked better for sure, but this past match, I mean, you could see at least the aggression was there. And what we see in these derbies so many times, it's so cliche, but I think it's a real thing, especially in the Derby della Eterna. It's a bloodbath, and you need to win those physical battles. And I kind of like having Storaro sitting next to Badel, and then having some three guys that are meant to kind of bring the ball up and be a little bit more creative with each other ahead of those two, so that hopefully we can kind of win that fight in the middle of the pitch a little bit more and assert ourselves a little bit. I actually thought that we were on the ball a lot against Cagliari in the first half. We just didn't really get all that much out of it. So
what would you be your lineup? Ideal, not only that, but also would you still see the 4-2-3? Well, I can't remember now.
I think I would like to go 4-2-3-1. Ideally, we get back Hefty at right back. I think that he offers like a little bit more. I don't know. I mean, I kind of like having Ekuban up there and giving Amiri once again. I don't know what else to do with him. I kind of think we got to have Amiri, Galdamesh, and Portanova. I mean, I don't know. Portanova is the only question mark for me. He's another one of those guys that's got that talent, but he's a little bit raw. But I kind of feel like we don't have that many guns right now. You know, we kind of have to roll with what we have, and give our players, like, put them as best as they can play in the position that they play. Whether or not it's going to win, you know, I think we have the players we have at this point. So I don't know. What would be your ideal formation for this one?
Well, before I start with the formation, I just wanted to point out also something out. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely, everything you said, I second that. Portanova, I wanted to add one thing that maybe not too many followers, if there will be any type of followers that are not Genoa fans, we have to understand some delicate situation behind the scenes that is happening, some legal battle that he's doing. He has been sued for something sexual, not sexual, that he has been doing or whatnot. So I'm sure, like, the guy is young, so 21, 22, I can't remember now exactly his age. I'm sure that is like affecting also psychologically his performance and whatnot. So, like, we also have to see, like, everybody is expecting like the best out of every player. Understandably, they're paying like a whole lot of money, so it's understandable. But we also have to understand that they're human beings, they're kids. So we have to understand that if there are certain bad days, hence what we've seen with Maksimovic, which he's like more of a veteran, but still can happen also to a young one. What would I see? I do like Amiri being like your diamond, top tip of the diamond in the center top.
Oh, I like
yeah. Do I see? Sorry, you have to help me out. Did you say like the 4-2-3-1?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So he would be the tip of that three in the behind the striker per se.
Uh-huh.
But I guess coming from an old school of seeing this beautiful football from Gasperini. Now, I'm not going to go back to the 3-4-3 because that's like your ideal, amazing football and so on. Perhaps we've seen in the second half with Cagliari when they changed, and hence also taking Amiri out, besides the fact that it was not necessarily his best day, for the 4-4-2, it gave a lot more pressure out there. I ideally would love to see some sort of a formation, and I'm not going to be able probably to word out in numbers, but I would like to see, yes, your striker, but also two wings that are supporting him because it's a him, obviously, but like up there. So Ekuban, I've seen him a lot better as a winger rather than a striker. He's been doing phenomenally as a winger. And I would see Ekuban and Yeboah as the two wingers with perhaps Destro or Piccoli for whoever. You know, at the end, Blessing is going to see who is in the best shape at that point in time.
Totally.
Whatever that number looks like, I don't know. Would it still look like a 4-2-3-1? I don't know. Perhaps maybe like a higher two wingers and the three, it becomes, I don't know, like a 4-3-2-1 maybe.
Yeah.
I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I like that kind of idea of having almost more of that diamond midfield kind of composition and trying to break down Sampdoria in that way. I mean, I think they might. I'm not sure if they're going into the match themselves with some of their own injury knocks, but it seems to me like we could have a battle to fight and win in the midfield, and if we can have I think you're right. Ekuban has been a little bit better coming off the wing and even sometimes making those overlapping runs instead of being. He's not really like a classic like number 9,
No, exactly.
So you kind of need him to be put in a place where he can really contribute. And obviously, he's got pace, he's got a lot of skill, but he's not the type of player that's going to hold the ball up or bring up play that way. And that actually might have been holding us back a little bit the last match. So
For sure. And then when you see Diego coming into the game, mind you, for now, so far, we haven't seen him from the starting 11. We've seen them only in the second half, at times only for the last 10 minutes. But when he does come up, he does give that freshness, that fresh air. He gets a lot of ball possession, and he's able to perhaps juggle a little bit better in the box compared to Ekuban, I guess. I don't know. But at the same time, I see the raw talent is there. It's just needs more working on it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, he contributes when he gets it. He's not. We've not seen any dividends from it really. We've not seen it be. It's maybe not as eye catching or as flashy, perhaps, but he's definitely involved from the minute he steps on the pitch, and I think it could be. This is one of those games we can't really wait until the 60th minute to figure it out. Like we kind of have to start and really be getting our game and getting that fluid together. So
actually, you said that exactly right, Matt. Like when I was thinking about Cagliari's match, and we were still at that standstill of the 0-0, and it almost sounded like it was going to end like that. I'm like, damn, are you going to like bring in the players like on the 85th minute and try to do your magic in the last 5 minutes? Yeah. He didn't actually do that because he did introduce some players a little bit earlier, and I was happy about that. Like sometimes if you want to bring some difference and some push and so on, which it has happened with Cagliari, you just have to do it a little bit earlier, mindful of what happens against what the other team has and so on.
Yeah.
With Sampdoria, it's a little bit difficult because they've had some spurs of good moments. Sometimes I read some friends of mine, because having lived in Genova, unfortunately, I have some friends from the other side, right? Friends, like with quotation marks.
Yeah.
But anyways, they're in a very bad situation. They're the club level ownership is almost at a standstill with respect to they don't even know what's going to happen next year.
Yeah.
So. I mean, should we march on that one? Absolutely, we should. We should just like destroy them. That's like obviously that's the fan part of me speaking. But what can I say? Derby has always, especially the Derby Lanterna, anyways. But I guess that's any bad derby. Has always been that sort of match where it's. We call it in Italian tripletta, which means like the triple. You can win, you can lose, and you can tie. You will never know independently of who is the strongest one or not, because a derby will bring out that extra, I don't know, strength, desire, focus, and whatnot. Mind you, the players nowadays are not as attached to the jersey as in the past, but still, I think, especially among Genoa anyways, the fans have shown their love and their passion and their support. And I think slowly, little, especially after the COVID and so on, we're seeing more and more the players you see them, even after losing 3-1. They're under the Gradinata Nord, still there, looking at their fans, cheering them as if they won the Champions League. It's like something, I don't know. You can't describe it.
It's pretty special. I mean, it reminds me of I think it was an old Crespo quote of after playing in Chelsea and coming back and talking about how the support here at Genoa was a different level. I think that was maybe in the Europa League back then when he experienced that. But still, you're seeing the togetherness there. That's one of the things that's the hardest about this whole thing, because I think sometimes we kind of, and this is a bunch of bigger clubs went down in some other leagues last year. A lot of famous ones in Germany went down, and a lot of the conversation for like the Schalkes and the clubs at that time that had kind of been similar to Genoa, really, of being a big sort of famous club, kind of teetering on relegation for several years. There's sort of this feeling like, maybe we need to go down, reset, get everything right, kind of build through our youth system, like do the fundamental things, and then come up with that foundation so that we're not kind of teetering like this every single season. And I completely get that sentiment, but it's hard to root for that the way that we're playing right now, because the team is together. It does seem like, even though maybe we've not had a ton of, we've mainly been getting draws out of the last several matches, it does seem like there's a little bit of a plan here, exactly how the team, I'm not sure we found our best 11, but like the fight is there, the players are together. There's certainly a togetherness with the club. And so you kind of just don't want to see that togetherness go away, particularly if players, leave because we're down a league or something like that. But it gives you something. I mean, even the draws, even the disappointing results, you still kind of feel like, I mean, it takes a while, but you still feel like, hey, we've got something left. We have a chance with this.
No, you're right. The derby, as I said, it's going to be a tough one. It's a must-win, as you said. I've heard so many fans saying, I don't care if we're going to be relegated as long as this one is the match of all. Exactly. You know what I mean? Let's look quickly at the standings also. So we have Venezia, which still one match at hand against Salernitana at 22. Then we have Genoa and Salernitana at 25, again, Salernitana with one match at hand. And 28 for Cagliari, so 3 above us. That's the relegation level right now.
Yep.
And +5 right now for Sampdoria.
Yes.
So what do you see from there? I'm just calling in these 5 teams because I don't think Spezia is going to be sucked into the bottom. You never know, really, because there's still 4. There are not many, though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's really, that's kind of that's it right now as it relates to kind of staying up in the league. I mean, I think we're lucky that after us, Sampdoria play Lazio. So you kind of hope, really, like for us, we at this point, from my perspective, I'm not sure we can count on Salernitana dropping the ball from where they are. I'm kind of assuming they're going to end up in a safe position. So I actually think we need to be 2 places up if we can. I mean, Salernitana have also got some pretty favorable results lately. I'm not sure exactly they're on a complete tear, and maybe the way that some may say. But they do play, I think, Venezia and Atalanta. So I don't know. For me, I think we've got to win this match. Our next 2 matches are going to be pretty difficult. Obviously, we have Juventus and Napoli back to back after Sampdoria, and then Bologna, who just pulled off a win against Inter. Although I don't know if you saw that match.
Did you see it? I mean, I didn't see the match, but I was working, obviously. But I was looking at the results. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" and not to mention the Fiorentina Udinese was like, "Okay, there's something wrong here." Yes. And then the also the what was the other one again? Remind me. So we had Inter yes. with Bologna and Atalanta with Fiorentina. What else did we have today?
Who else is playing today?
Right, and we have also the Atalanta Torino. Sorry, I said that. Fiorentina Udinese in Bologna Inter. So the Bologna Inter just basically opened up. Everybody was given for granted that Inter was going to be winning the Scudetto again.
Yeah.
Rightfully so. It is the strongest team right now in Serie A. There's no question about that. Yeah. I actually read this very interesting article that was saying that Inter's team is the strongest in Italy, but it's playing a very old style football. Like they were actually referring it to 60s and 70s type of football style. I don't know about that, but anyways, I'm just quoting what I read, right?
Yeah.
While Milan, AC Milan, is not like the strongest, yet it is playing the more favorable modern style of football, hence being stronger with the results because of the type of game style that they have. So it's very interesting, the actual battle that is happening out there. Will this favor us? I guess in a way with Sampdoria, it's definitely going to unfavor them with Inter being all on them. For us, having Napoli seems like they already have. Unfortunately for them, they have lost that train for the Scudetto battle. For them, as well as Juventus, it's more of a matter of fact of just keeping up their lead that they have for the top four.
Sure.
So is that going to benefit us? Maybe, perhaps, maybe.
Yeah.
Hopefully, among the two matches, we can get one, hopefully 2 points.
Yeah.
Obviously, my desire is 6, but
The match, the result for Napoli over the weekend, I think, was one collectively we all breathed a little bit of a sigh of relief on, because with them not being in contention anymore, it definitely eases that match and maybe puts them. I don't know. Sometimes you see this when teams fall off the paces a little bit. They don't really have a whole lot else to play for. They kind of check out a little bit. And I think there's definitely going to be a different energy for that side than for us. Juve, I worry a little bit more about, just because I feel like Juve, they're probably going to show up. But you never know. I mean, you're right. They're not really. It's really still Milan and Inter that are battling for the Scudetto this year. So maybe we can nick a point out of both of the matches. Yeah, I mean, I do. I worry about Salernitana's next set of fixtures, just because they're kind of playing. I mean, Empoli sort of a little bit of a surprise outfit this year, but it's Venezia, Cagliari, Udinese, not completely scary matchups for them, and Atalanta this coming week. So hopefully Atalanta are able to pull something out of it.
well, you have a point there where I think like you said like Salernitana against Cagliari, right? So that's going to be like a very tough one. I think actually out of all of them, that will be the toughest.
Yeah.
Then they have that recoup match against Venezia, which is going to be another one, which hopefully Venezia still has to show something.
Some sort of fun.
Yeah, something. They're just not going to give up totally, even though we just saw today the announcement about Zanetti being ditched, basically. So they're just going to have the under 19 coach to train them. So are they totally doomed? I would say the bookmakers would say they are definitely the one to be relegated.
Right.
Who's the next one? The next two, actually. That's all up for grabs. I think we do have a slim chance. I don't think there is a huge chance, but it definitely has to be played. Winning the derby is definitely going to be the thing to do. But listen, as I said before, the derby, it doesn't matter who you are, what level you are. And unfortunately, the two Genovese, should I say one Genovese team and the suburb team from Genova are playing each other, and it's just tough to say, especially both being at the bottom of the table and with their differences and their issues that they have at hand. I haven't really followed much their season. I don't know how much you have followed with respects to who should we look out for. I know Rincon, former Genoa player, is not going to be in the match.
Yep. Band, I think.
Yeah.
It's an interesting one. I mean, they've had some players that have been like their sort of more standard contributors. Like we think about like Morten Thorsby and players like that. I don't know. I mean, maybe this guy Caputo. He's been. I think that's how you pronounce his name. He's their forward. I think in most matches these days. I'm not sure we're going to see a ton of Quagliarella. I mean, maybe we will. This guy always seems to get something against us. But at his age, I kind of have to think that he's not going to be in the starting lineup in a derby match. I mean, unless they've got something up their sleeve. So I think looking out for Francesco Caputo in the forward position and trying to kind of limit what he's able to do. I'm not sure if we're going to see if anybody else from their midfield. I'm not terribly concerned. Obviously, they've got Candreva, but again, it just kind of it's a strange side for me a little bit. I mean, you can see why the fans would be a little bit in doubts with where Sampdoria are today. Not only with the ownership kind of questions, but you look at kind of the way that this team is composed, and even I think a player maybe to kind of take advantage of a little bit, Ronaldo Vieira, and their defensive midfielder of theirs. I'm not sure always a guy that's going to give excellent performances for them. So I don't know. I think it's going to be scrappy. Hopefully we don't see the scrappy Sampdoria goals that we've seen in the past several matches, but I feel like reluctantly optimistic about this. I'm not terribly scared about their side, which now I'm knocking on wood saying, why did I say that out loud?
Please do that. Yes, exactly. But ultimately, okay. Let's round it up as what's your prediction?
So I think it's going to be a really difficult match. I do like Ekuban getting on the score sheet early on. I think this match is going to be heady. There's going to be a lot of energy. I think we might even go into halftime with a 1-0 lead, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think the final score will be 2-1. I do think it'll be 2-1 to Genoa. Apparently, Vegas does not exactly agree with me, although the line is almost even between Genoa and Sampdoria, so it's pretty damn close. Also, I'm not sure how well the sports books have figured out Serie A yet, so at least in the States. But that's my prediction. I think 2-1 to Genoa, hard fought. I don't think it's going to be an easy game by any means. I think it might be another late winner for us. Maybe this time we see Destro repeat some of his heroics of seasons past, and another great win I'm really hoping to see. What would be your prediction?
Well, I'm going to side with you with respect to the bookmakers. I'm going to start with that one by saying, yes, they have not necessarily being on the ball, especially for a derby, especially for the derby antenne. But mind you that their predictions are also based on home and away, and Genoa plays as an away team, yet still playing at home. So essentially might not be on the ball specifically around that. And I think that the current feelings among the players, ultimately, listen, I can tell you that I want Genoa to win. This is what my feeling is that I want them to win 2-0. I want to see finally like a good clean sheet, 2-3. Hopefully, I can only be hopeful for the 3-game lead, a 3 goals lead. But I want like a nice, like a nice win for the first time, at least with Blessing. But it's going to be tough, as you said. It's a derby, so it's very tough. But at the end, it's all going to come down to who really wants it the most. Yes. So it's all about pumping of what the coach is able to do in the spogliatoio, as we say in Italian, so in the locker room, with respect to pumping their players and make them understand and make them be there fully attentive and careful and not distracted and so on. So ultimately, that's what it's going to come down to. We can only hope that the derby is not going to be one of those stalemates with too much nervousness and afraid to lose. So no, like goalless, because that would only. I'm going to say it's going to probably benefit more Sampdoria for a tie, while Genoa just has to have a win.
Yeah, we have a little bit more to play for, I think, frankly. I mean, it's obviously Sampdoria are going to be going at us at this game. There's never a match between these two where it's a let-up or it's an easy or it's a light affair or something like that. But certainly if we end up with a draw, we're probably going down. If Sampdoria end up with a draw, they're probably staying up. So that dynamic will be really interesting. If this game doesn't have a whole lot in it for a while, how we're going to break that deadlock, I think, I'm not sure exactly what Blessing has up his sleeves, but I think we have to have some sort of plan, because I wouldn't be totally surprised if, this would be kind of a cowardly tactic, but if Sampdoria at the latter stages of the match set off and really just kind of parked the bus a little bit, I wouldn't be completely surprised by that. So we have to figure out how to break that down. I don't think it's going to be like that, though. This is one of these matches. It's going to be. I think there are going to be a couple of scrappy goals in there somewhere.
2-0 for us, right?
Yeah. Both on our side.
Okay, so having said that, so we talked about the last game. We talked about the next one coming up. Next week, obviously, we're going to talk about what happened here for the derby. All happy without voices, like scratching and so on. Hopefully.
I have to tell you, so when we were watching the game, I have, you probably can't tell very well, I have a little bit of a black eye. When I play basketball a lot, and I always get whacked because I'm really tall. So we were celebrating like this. The whole bar was turning around like, what is happening? It's probably like 6 of us. And one of the guys was like, I didn't give you a black eye when we were celebrating, did I? I was like, no, that's from before. It's okay. It's okay. Everyone was saying on the train ride home we couldn't talk anymore. So
That's not fair.
Yeah.
So, what's the goal of our podcast? So, we're going to definitely talking about the past games. We're going to talk about the next match day. So, also with respect to our situation, mostly about the teams that are surrounding to us. So, at the bottom table at this point, we're going to be talking about the next match and or the next matches. So, as we mentioned, the Napoli and so on, and Juventus. We might have some guests. So, as we started just today with our podcast, we might looking for some guests in here on. So, next one could be a gobbo, as we say in Italian. So, like a hatchback type of a fan, which means Juventino fan. And maybe the one after for Napoli. There's a few of them, obviously, around in North America, anyways, or around the world. The last one will be a little bit more difficult, so probably I'm just reaching out right now already, 3 weeks ahead of time for a Bolognese fan, which is our last match, which is probably a die for all, depending on our next results, anyways. And that's not going to be easy, anyways, both from a result perspective and both from finding a English-speaking Bolognese. So yeah, I guess this is going to be our format. We're going to have some guests, as I mentioned. We're going to talk about the Serie A from a Rosso Blue standpoint, because I think we're obviously hearing it always. And I have lots, we all have friends, different podcasts are talking mostly about, the top five or the top six, where they call it like the big sisters of Serie A.
Yeah.
But it's always interesting also to see it from other perspectives, different scenarios, different point of views, and so on, which can be interesting. I hope so. Anyways, that's our goal, I guess, is also to see Serie A also from different perspectives and not only from the top 5, 6, and whatnot. You're okay with that, right? I guess.
I think that's perfect. I mean, that's let's bring this perspective to others. And I think you hear all the time about those big, the Six Sisters. I think I love that phrase. I actually hadn't heard that before, but that's always the perspective you hear it from, right? Like I feel like they're all kind of fighting the same fight. There's so much else going on in Serie A and across the world football stage. And I think giving a voice to all fans, not just fans of that group, I think is part of what we're trying to do.
Well, besides, like, we're talking about the old. I mean, obviously, I'm not trying to be here trying to bring and pull people like with their teeth and so on, but it is the oldest team of Italy. People might not know that. It is the fourth most winning Scudetto team in Italy. So if you look at it from the amount of Scudetti, you have Juventus first, then you have Inter and AC Milan that are like teeth to teeth. I think one is 19 and the other one with 18. And then you have Genoa with 9. So I'm saying this to everyone. We just need one. And then we'd be happy. We have that little star here on the pictorial of the jersey, and showing that star is just the dream that I guess every and any Genoano would love to see. Obviously, I'm talking futuristic impossibilities and so on, but hey, you can't deny a dream from a fan. But yeah, so we definitely would love to hear more insights. We are going to be opening a web page. Sorry, not a web page, but like a social page also on Instagram, on Facebook, and on Twitter. So we want to hear also comments and ideas from different people. Even if people want to participate or want to say their own say about what they thought about what we had to say against their own teams or whatnot, right? We could just hear someone from Cali saying, "Hey, I do speak English, and you can't talk bad about my team like that." Something like that.
Yeah, very well could be the outcome after this podcast. Would not be surprised.
So I guess this is more or less a wrap, unless you have anything that you wanted to add as a final comment, Matt?
I think the only last bit of optimism going into this weekend's match, which is I think something we maybe all have known, but just it's a nice piece of confirmation. There will not be Mandolo Gabiladini playing in the match this weekend. There will be no Gabbiadini sighting. We are not going to be seeing some crazy, stupid goal out of nothing from Gabbiadini. I am very happy to say that because several of the last matches have featured this guy, and I hate him. So one more reason to be optimistic about.
Actually, Matt, after saying this, I'm going to truly say you are a true Genoano. Because having said this, you are absolutely true. Who is this guy really? Like, I mean, he only scores against Genoa. Like, what is that?
It's like the only time that he scores, and it's always some ridiculous thing too. It's just like I never understand it. Something in his contract, I think. I don't know.
You score against that team, and then that's it. We'll give you all the money you want. Anyways, thank you, Matt. We'll definitely see everyone next week. Thank you for listening to us. We enjoyed, we did definitely enjoy our this 1 hour together, and we're looking forward to talking to you next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it, gang.
Thank you. Forza Genoa.
Forza Genoa.
You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genuani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.